going to conquer and we're going to take some. Is that understood? Yes, sir. That's what we're going to do, sweetheart. We are going to go and get some. All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! What are you?
In the July issue of EP magazine, read about adaptive sports and recreation. There is also a special military section each month. You can read this issue and past archive issues for free by signing up for EP at www.epmagazine.com.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel, a knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Hello and welcome to Oscar Mike Radio. This is number 452 as we count down to number 500, counting down to number 500 in 2026. And this show just keeps getting better and better. I love the kind of topics we get to talk about. And I've got a special, new one for you today. I didn't know anything about this. And we're multinational. I have a Canadian and Israeli guest talking to me. I'm all about that. We're going to be concise because it's 6 or 8 hours ahead of time for our Israeli guest. Gentlemen, I just want to welcome you all to talk about empath therapy, ibogaine therapy, and Empath Therapeutics, ibogaine therapy. I want to introduce my guest, multinational, from Canada, Martin Shefsky, and from Israel, Boaz Wachtell. Gentlemen, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you, Travis, and very happy to be here.
Same here.
Absolutely. So I get an email from, someone, and they're like, hey, we have these guests, and they do this thing called ibogaine therapy, and they're with Empath Therapeutics. And at first I thought, well, empath is kind of like an empathetic or empath healing. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of different, but it's not. So ibogaine therapy is completely different. We're going to learn all about it. But before we get into all of that, I want to learn about the men behind all this. And, Martin, you're the, founder and chief executive officer of Empath Therapeutics. And, Boaz, you head up the ibogaine part of this. Who wants to go first and kind of give us a behind the scenes of who you all are?
I guess I can start. as Travis said, my name is Martin Shefsky. I'm the founder of Empath Therapeutics and CEO. My background in the early days was in investment banking. I then got involved within the cannabis community. I started one of the first Canadian federally legal cannabis operations. And one day I got introduced to this compound called ibogaine by a First Nations member here in Canada. First Nations are the equivalent of your American Indians, the indigenous peoples of the country. And when I looked into this, it became really the goal of my life to get this out into the public domain, create awareness. As part of my cannabis travels, I began a pharmaceutical company in the country of Jamaica in Montego Bay. And once I became aware of ibogaine and started digging into what it is, where it's from, how is it available, I found that there was a very large need for a regulated pharmaceutical source of this material, because currently the vast majority of it is, first of all, unregulated. Secondly, sourced through illicit means, because there is no legal pathway. Very hard to access the material from its source country of Gabon in Africa. And we've established relationships with suppliers in Gabon. We have legally imported into the country of Jamaica, and we are currently producing a pharmaceutical ibogaine hydrochloride, which is a highly purified form of the plant-based product.
Let's go back a little bit before we get into Boaz. Why did Canada approve marijuana or cannabis on the federal level, where you have some countries that still don't approve any use of it at all? And in America, it's kind of like hit or miss. Some states it's okay. Some states you're going to jail. What was it that made Canada different in that aspect?
Well, we operate a little differently. It's more federally focused. Our provinces, which would be the equivalent of your states, have less independence than you do in the U.S. And it just so happened our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, was a big fan of cannabis and proposed to federally legalize it for medical use, which was done about 6 or 7 years ago. And about 3 years ago, it shifted to full adult use. But my focus was always on the medical front.
Okay. Well, Boaz, my second Israeli guest, as a matter of fact, tell me a little bit about yourself. You have a very interesting professional background, and then I want to find out about ibogaine itself. But please tell us who you are.
So thank you, Travis. My Boaz Wachtell. So I was born here in Israel, and the age of I served the military for 3 years in the special forces, and so I'm a veteran as well. And at the age of 24, I ended up receiving a job at the military section in the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., as first as an assistant to the army attaché, and then later as a assistant to the Israeli Ministry of Defense for the Star Wars that started then, and it matured into Iron Dome and other missile defense systems that we collaborate with the United States to a great degree. And when I lived in the United States, I came across a group that from New York that I actually met a drug addict who was telling me about ibogaine, and I didn't know, no one knew exactly what it was. So I met him before and after ibogaine. All right. So, and I was so amazed by the transformation of this individual. So when I moved to New York, and I saw this very small group of people, Howard Latzov, Bob Sisko, and his wife, and Norma Latzov, who claimed to have a cure for addiction and for trauma. And I decided to help them. So for the next 5 years, I worked with them in Holland, also with a very famous psychiatrist, Jan Bastians, who treated veterans and Holocaust survivors with psychedelics, and also in Panama. And I treated in my lifetime about 100 people. And ibogaine is really a tremendous plant medicine that is actually sacred in Gabon and in Central West Africa, and it's a very powerful medicine to treat many of the symptoms that the veterans suffer from, which include PTSD and traumatic brain injury, and SUD, substance use disorders. And there's evidence, and also backed by science now, that ibogaine in a single or double treatments really can transform veterans' life. And there are thousands of American veterans who travel to Mexico across the border because it's federally illegal in the United States to use ibogaine. They travel to Mexico to do treatments in different types of clinics. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. And Empath Therapeutics aims to do two things. Basically, one is to provide all these clinics with pharmaceutical grade, stable, and ibogaine produced in Jamaica, and also to treat addicts not addicts or substance use disorder and PTSD in Jamaica. So that's the short of it. I mean, there's a lot of stories around it, but what I want to say is about my background. I was the leading activist to medicalize cannabis in Israel. Okay. And Israel has now a national medical cannabis plan that really caters for, right now we have 140,000 people who receive it, many of them with PTSD, helps them sleep and with pain and so on. And throughout the years, I also treated a bunch of people with ibogaine. And today we are at the point that really the ibogaine scene, as you can call it, is exploding partially because current therapies don't work for veterans who suffer from PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. If current therapies, which are two FDA-approved medications, that are not better than placebo, and then there's behavioral, psychological therapies or cognitive therapies, they don't really make the impact that ibogaine does. And ibogaine, which you take, and it lasts let's say 8 hours of visualization, and then your repressed memories come forward and the traumas, and you basically, instead of the trauma managing you, suddenly you can manage the trauma and gives it some objectivity. And there are abundant testimonials in the internet about people who've taken ibogaine and it really changed their lives and their family lives and healed them.
So just gentlemen, rudimentary noob question here, as we say, as my kids say, what exactly is ibogaine? That's my first question. And the second is, how does it compare to cannabis? Because, and here's the question why I'm asking that question. A lot of things you're saying about ibogaine, I was told the very same thing about cannabis about 6 to 8 years ago. So I'm trying to understand the differences between the two and what makes ibogaine so unique and special.
Martin, you want to take this first?
Well, I can take the ibogaine part, but I'll let you take the other part. So ibogaine is a shrub grown in rainforest type environment in the country of Gabon in Africa. As Boaz had mentioned, it's been used for hundreds or thousands of years by the indigenous peoples as a rite of passage and as a treatment for various ailments. It is harvested by the root bark of the plant, and that root bark is then ground up and purified from that point. So this is a full plant-based medicine, and that is only the case with iboga. So there are other products that claim to be ibogaine that is a semi-synthesized or synthesized products, but we are focused on the plant-based, 100% natural ibogaine, what we call in the pharmaceutical world, ibogaine hydrochloride or ibogaine HCl. And that is purified in our pharmaceutical facility that is regulated and approved by the government of Jamaica as a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility with dangerous drugs licenses and pharmaceutical distribution. We are able to export anywhere that ibogaine is legal. So that currently does not include the US, although we plan to be shipping product into the US for R&D purposes with the studies that are ongoing.
Okay.
So there's a big difference between, I think, cannabis and ibogaine. Cannabis deals with basically the symptoms, alleviates symptoms of, let's say, sleep disorders and pain, and it relaxes and so on. While ibogaine treats the causes rather than the symptoms themselves, and it does so with very complex biological interaction in the brain, and it resets the brain, so to speak, in simple terms, and rewires many of the receptors that have been damaged either by traumatic brain injury or the PTSD. And it allows the individual to really feel like they were before the trauma happened or the addiction occurred. So it's like a workhorse of the unconscious, yes, as opposed to, cannabis being a treatment that ameliorates some symptoms that are caused by different, issues that ibogaine can address, which are the root causes. Okay, so there's a big difference. Ibogaine, among the psychedelic drugs, if we just name a few of them, MDMA is not a classical psychedelic, but LSD is, and psilocybin, and so on. So people who have done a number of psychedelics also testify that ibogaine really did the work for them, and it has a very long-lasting metabolite, which is called noribogaine. And this metabolite, which stays in the blood, in fat cells, has a slow release. So it has also an antidepressant effect.
Oh, okay.
And many people with PTSD and with substance use disorders have underlying depression. And this ibogaine medicine treats this depression very well. So, and it's the SSRIs that are used widely are not really producing the good results, the lasting results, and they have tremendous side effects. These are also called maintenance therapies. The SSRIs, it's like a maintenance therapy. It's like methadone for heroin.
What does again, I'm a medical noob here, hate doctors. What does SSRI mean?
These are the psychiatric medications, the common psychiatric medications like Martin, the names, please.
Yeah, they're the current drugs that are approved for treatment of depression and anxiety. And so these are all drugs that treat the symptoms but don't treat the underlying causation. And even in treating the symptoms, they're not very effective. And as Boaz said, have huge side effects. And they're basically lifetime products.
Like Xanax and lithium?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, so it escaped me for a second.
Okay, so I just learned a whole lot more than I knew 15 minutes ago. This is fantastic. But the next thing I'm curious about is you all start your own, it sounds like you all started your own journey separately. How did you all come together to form Empath Therapeutics?
Well, I started it and doing a little research. Well, to go back a moment, I've known Boaz for about 15 years.
Oh, okay.
So I just didn't know he was involved in ibogaine at the time. So Boaz was a big help to me in starting my cannabis operation in Canada due to his long connections within the space in Israel and throughout Europe. So he was a big help in us getting our cannabis company up and running in Canada. We were also the first company in the country to import genetics from Europe into Canada, and that was with the help and patience of Boaz, because being the first at anything with a government situation takes a lot of patience to work through those things. And then when I got involved with ibogaine to begin with, I was, doing my due diligence and came across Boaz's name, looking at literature to do with ibogaine. And the minute I saw that, I picked up the phone and called him, told him what we were doing and asked if he would be interested. And he was, and he came on board and is our chief ibogaine officer for Empath Therapeutics, and is really our technical expert. And because of his foundations in ibogaine, he's basically either treated, taught, or knows pretty much everyone within the ibogaine space.
Yeah.
So again, another new question here. This is why we're here. If this has been used for thousands of years, this is a naturally growing plant. You can be cultivated and husband to be effective, right? But if it's a naturally occurring plant, it's not man-made, it's not a pill, then why are so many governments, it's not just the United States, there's a lot of governments like do not want anything to do with this.
Correct.
Why? If it's effective, why don't you want it for your populace? Why?
Well, there's several areas of that. And
okay.
There's a financial component. So as a natural plant-based product, there's no intellectual property available, so that you can't patent it. You can't price it through the moon because there's no access. The illegality limits the research necessary to get the various approvals in the US and other countries. And then there's a natural issue against psychedelics because of the thought that it's a recreational product. Now, ibogaine is not a recreational product. It has no risk of diversion. It is not an experience, for the most part, that you'd want to repeat. It's highly cathartic, but not pleasurable. So, and in addition to that, the duration of the experience is unlike anything else out there. So Boaz mentioned a few other psychedelics. They range in duration from 20 minutes to a couple hours of the effect, psychedelic effect. Ibogaine can go as far as 18 to 36 hours. So it's a very intense experience.
I'd like to add to that it's it doesn't psychedelic drugs sometimes cause distortion, visual distortion, and so on. Ibogaine doesn't cause visual distortion. It basically releases suppressed memories in a visualized form, like in a movie of your life going back in time, yes, and actually to when you were young and when you were a kid and when you were actually pre-birth, yes, and it connects you to yourself and to your ancestors, to your lineage. And it does so, as Martin said, it's a grueling journey, but if there's no pain, there's no gain, okay? And it's not pleasurable, and the impact lasts for a lifetime. You know, I mean, many people who've taken it, you know, like Martin said, they don't want to take it again. But if they get into trouble, they do want to get it again. It's a troubleshooter drug, you can say, so to speak. If you go back to drinking and you're feeling that you're not coping very well anymore, then you go back. You say, I want to take ibogaine. I mean, we've seen it again. Most people don't want to do it again because it worked for them. You know, a one-time shot, which is, you know, you take a week or 10 days of your lifetime, you do screening, you do different medical screening, a psychiatric screening, and then you lie down in bed, they give you the pill, and you go on your journey with covered eyes and earplugs and so on, and it's you and ibogaine and the molecule. Okay, so I mean, there's no interference in the process, because you're busy with your own emotions and your own you know, memories and so on, and it's really a very profound you know, cathartic journey. It's actually saving you 10 years on the psychiatrist's couch, and it does so within, you know, a couple of days. That's the bottom line. It's really a miraculous molecule. And Stanford University, we got to talk about it, did a study on 30 American vets, special forces, who went to Mexico for a clinic. And they MRI'd them and they examined their, you know, their PTSD symptoms. And they had, most of them had traumatic brain injuries and so on. And they did an MRI before and MRI later, and then they examined them throughout the scales, the PTSD scales, and so on.
Yeah, so and that was over the course of a year, so it was an extended follow-up.
And what they saw, what this guy, you know, the head of the unit in Stanford, very Nolan Williams, what they reported in Nature magazine, which is like a top-notch scientific magazine, was that there was a between 80 to 90% reduction in the major symptoms of PTSD. I mean, like also depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation. And they didn't believe what they saw. And another thing that they saw was that the brain age of these veterans, you know, became younger by 1.3 years. Now, it's really tremendous how a compound can make your brain younger.
I was going to ask that, like, how's that compound do that?
That's a big question.
Okay.
It does so through rejuvenation and genesis of receptors and new connectivity in the brain. And it has ramification also for neurodegenerative diseases. We now know also, I mean, there are clinics that are opening up, and Empath Therapeutics also plans to do that to treat Parkinson's diseases on low doses, not on the high doses that ibogaine does. So it has a very wide range therapeutic implications. And that's what we aim to do, is to bring it to the public as soon as possible and provide the US government and the veteran administrations and American veterans who dedicated their lives to serve the country with access to a pharmaceutical grade, you know, compound.
So that leads me to my next thing. How did you all focus on veterans? Because yes, other people have PTSD, but veterans have, you know, PTSD from service. What led you to say, you know, we're going to try, you know, seeing how this works with the veteran population And I'll start there first.
Well, I think Boaz can address that as a veteran himself. We have a veterans focus, but the statistics, as you mentioned, that veterans only account for 20% of PTSD sufferers in the US and worldwide. So the opportunity and the need is massive. But we think the greatest need, the military has provided service. There is a huge addiction issue within the veterans community. I believe the number I saw recently was 470,000 veterans are currently addicts or have addiction issues. And one of the things that people don't talk about is the vast majority of those suffering from addiction are self-medicating for PTSD or traumatic brain injuries. So ibogaine kind of addresses all of the underlying causation that these people are suffering from, that the veterans are suffering from.
I don't want to assume, but have you all personally seen veterans go through your treatment regimen and come out of it?
No, we are just getting started. So
just getting started, okay.
Yeah. Our first goal was getting the pharmaceutical ibogaine produced and available. That is a long process when you're dealing with a pharmaceutical product. And we are regulated, we are GMP certified. So there's a series of processes that have to take place prior to being able to offer the product for sale. So
I personally, sorry, Martin. I personally treated, both hardcore drug addicts and veterans in my lifetime. Yes, I've co-authored the first treatment manual with Howard Latzoff, with the late Howard Latzoff. So, and being a vet myself, and I also want to say another reason is that the veterans are well organized in the United States. They're very good lobbying vis-a-vis the federal government, as opposed to drug addicts that don't have any, lobbying capabilities. And the outlaw of ibogaine was a big mistake in 1967 for reasons we won't go into. I mean, like the government tries to monopolize the consciousness of people with, like sobriety stories. But many people need help from variety of sources, plant-based medicines like cannabis and ibogaine and so on. So we think that the veterans, and it's happening already, it's happening with the Texas initiative right now, which is a $50 million initiative to allow ibogaine in Texas. Yeah, Martin.
Yes, so the Texas initiative is actually $100 million private-public partnership where the state is putting up $50 million and the private sector is putting up $50 million. And that's being driven by Governor Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard, the former Attorney General for Kentucky. And then Arizona has just proposed a bill to also provide funding for ibogaine research. And it is my understanding that there are a number of other states that are also pushing through at the state level funding and opportunities for ibogaine research and usage. So it is moving. The other big thing is with the change in administrations, you have an administration now that is very pro-veteran and also has veterans in the positions of decision-making. And the ones that I've talked to are very well aware of ibogaine's efficacy since they've had friends, brothers in the special forces communities that have been treated. As Boaz has said, thousands of American veterans have already been treated and have shown the tremendous benefits. So the people within the current administration are aware of those benefits. And I believe there's a great opportunity to allow veterans access to ibogaine prior to the FDA approving it for wider use. And that's because of their veterans focus. So I think there's a big opportunity to have that become available through the VA or through the Department of Defense under the current program brought in under the previous Trump administration under Right to Try, which is a program that allows people to access drugs that are not FDA approved.
Well,
So,
yeah, and that was the thing. If you, as a veteran, were a VA patient and tried something like this without VA approval, you were potentially going to lose your VA benefits or your VA care because you went outside the VA to get this care.
and also there's no financial reimbursement
Right.
by the VA for this treatment. So that's a big roadblock as well, because most veterans do not have the necessary resources to fund their ibogaine treatment themselves.
So that was one of my questions. I'll ask it now. So how much does an ibogaine treatment cost?
Approximately 10,000. It varies slightly between various service providers, but roughly $10,000 US.
That's on the low end. I mean, there are clinics, high-end clinics, which it costs more. Travis, want to say that, in Israel, after the horrendous massacre in October, I mean, we have here maybe $500,000, half a million people with added to the unfortunate pool of people with PTSD. And we are aiming to do a binational, program with the U.S. government. We have a lot of experience now treating PTSD, in the early stages, rather than it becoming chronic situations.
Right.
So we can contribute also to the understanding of how to make it, a non-chronic situation with ibogaine and with other innovative therapies, and the relationship between Israel and the United States is very strong, and I've been advocating it in the Israeli parliament and so on, and that's what we aim to do, a binational cooperation on ibogaine development for veterans.
Walk with me here just for a second, gentlemen. One of the treatment modalities for PTSD that I'm studying right now is HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And they kind of claim the same thing, that they can repair brain tissue and do PTSD, but they're running into the same kind of challenges you all running into. It's not widely accepted. It's not fully federally approved for, insurance coverage or VA use. In other words, if you're going to use it in this country, in the United States, you're pretty much going to pay out of pocket for it unless you're a commercial diver. So how do you get past the challenges of trying to convince these entities? And if they're funded by the drug companies, they're not going to want you all in. How do you move all past those challenges to bring this treatment to a wider group of people?
Yeah, well, I guess I can start with that. So the pharmaceutical company model, which drives the FDA and the regulatory bodies, is very expensive. And they're not going to do something where they don't have the ability to recoup that investment. So we talked earlier about intellectual property, the ibogaine being a plant-based product that cannot be patented. So you're not going to get the pharma companies moving on the necessary research and studies that are required to move through that process. The other thing is, as Boaz had mentioned, is that ibogaine is normally a one treatment and you're done, maybe a second treatment. That is not the pharmaceutical model.
Patient for life, Martin. Patient for life.
Exactly. So, for instance, with addiction, there are two primary treatment modalities, drugs that are used as treatment, and they're both opioids. They're just less addictive opioids than the ones that people are addicted to, and their lifetime usage. So the recurring revenue model of the pharmaceutical companies. Now, there is a solution ongoing right now. So the Stanford study was privately funded. The gentleman who funded that, you may have heard of, a gentleman by the name of Sergey Brin,
Okay.
who is a exceptionally wealthy co-founder of Google, is also funding privately studies to move ibogaine through the FDA process. There is another also ultra high net worth individual doing it in another company that is also pushing the natural plant-based product through the FDA process. That group has already completed phase 1 safety studies and are currently ongoing in phase 2. So that's really the difficulty, is the typical model for FDA approved drugs is pharmaceutical companies spending hundreds of millions of dollars to go through the FDA process, get the approvals, and then charging obscene amounts of money for the rest of your life, which is a good business model. It's just not a good health model.
No.
So I'll let Boaz carry from there.
First of all, Travis, we are all for anything that works. I wish that, there were treatments that worked, the HBOT, which is the oxygen treatment. It's a total of 60 daily sessions.
Yes.
5 days a week.
Yes.
5 days a week. So it's very, hectic schedule, or demanding schedule. Ibogaine, in contrast to that, it's let's say 36 hours the most, the treatment itself, but then a couple of days before for admission, and then post-treatment evaluation and support. And then there's a lot of, it could be, telesupport by Zoom and so on. So it's also an economic model, which makes more sense. If you have to do, you come 60 daily session 5 times a week, it's very demanding on people. It's like the difference between methadone and ibogaine. Methadone, you have to come to a clinic every day for the rest of your life almost, take it, daily. Or 12 steps program. You got to come every day for the many, many years. And ibogaine, it has a long-lasting effect with a single treatment. So the economics of it, so that people can go back to work, so they don't have to leave work and go to sessions every day or visit the clinic and so on. So it makes much more sense. And the reason that I saw today in the New York Times that the Veteran Administration is about, the federal government is about to downsize the Veteran Administration. And I don't know if you've seen the news today. It's very disturbing news. These people, the veterans who dedicated their lives and, went overseas to fight for American interests, now they will not be, treated with 100% capacity that the Veteran Administration is trying to, yes, there are ways that, so the system needs flexibility. The federal system needs flexibility. We offer here to medicalize ibogaine, okay? It could save also the Veteran Administration a lot of money and effort, in regular treatments, going back and forth, throughout the years.
The numbers I've seen published by the VA is that the cost to treat a PTSD veteran is over $25,000 a year for life. And that's just PTSD. That's not their other health issues. So with a $110,000 treatment, that ongoing cost savings is astronomical. So that alone should be motivation for the VA to take a serious look at the implementation of an ibogaine program.
We could talk for hours, gentlemen, and this is great. I guess there's two things I want to cover in the time we have left. What's it like, more for Boaz, watching that veteran or drug addict, but veteran especially, go through the ibogaine treatment and come out a changed person? What's that like for them, and what do you see? Because, you know, I was expecting there would have to be follow-ups or support groups or whatever, but you say they're pretty much good to go after they go through the treatment.
As I said, what they see is basically their lives in like a movie going in reverse.
Wow.
So going through good things and bad things and traumas, and many people have very difficult guilt feelings with vis-a-vis their families, that they have not been a good father or a good mother, you know, but it's not their fault, of course. It's the situation, the trauma caused them not to function, you know, properly. So it's a deep healing process, and you throw up, let's say, once or twice in the process. You lie down, and you are very introspective. There are basically three phases. One is the visualization stage that can last, you know, 8 hours. The second one is the evaluation stage, which can last, you know, 12 or so hours. And then there's the integration stage, which can last for a very long time. And in these stages, coupled with the noribogaine, which is the metabolite, the antidepressant, it gives you a peace of mind, and the anxiety and this suicidal ideation and the depression are somehow miraculously, you know, being handled by this pharmacology of ibogaine. And it's I don't want to sound like I'm you know, like I'm hypering the results, but I've been in it for like 35 years, and I have seen drug addicts, I've seen trauma patients that their lives were transformed in a single treatment. And if I wouldn't have seen it, and if I would have thought that the benefits outweigh the risk, you know, then I wouldn't have been here, you know, talking to you or joining Empath Therapeutics. I think it has a future. I think not only me, Nolan Williams said that ibogaine will change psychiatry and neuropharmacology, and for forever and ever, you know, and that's amazing to hear it from someone who is so senior in the scientific world. So it's not just me and Martin and a few other, you know, activists, and the states in the United States. The great thing about it, as opposed to Canada, they have the power to pass legislation to make it accessible. You know, it's already happening in Colorado. It's happening in Washington State, and it should happen soon. Also, in June or so in Aspen, Colorado, where 12 states from the union are coming to discuss how we can medicalize basically ibogaine under the good conditions. You know, it has to be the right setting and the right screening and so on. So it does have a future, and an immediate future, because the epidemic of PTSD and traumatic brain injury is so rampant, and we have to take drastic steps, and now is the time to do it.
So next steps, let's talk about what's next for Empath as the company. You know, ibogaine has its path forward. You just told me about that. But as Empath Therapeutics, and I'll have the link to the website and Ask Mike Radio show post. It's a lot to read, and, you know, all good stuff. But what's next for your company and what your company's trying to do, gentlemen?
Well, we plan on offering our pharmaceutical ibogaine hydrochloride to the market likely within the next 90 to 120 days, and then to begin treating veterans in Jamaica likely early in the new year.
So by the time this show airs, you'll be through that, and then by 2026, you can start treating veterans if they come to Jamaica.
Correct.
So the winding this down, the last obvious question is, how do veterans then connect with Empath Therapeutics, and what can they expect when they do?
Well, they can reach out or look at our information on empaththerapeutics.com. They can reach out to myself or Boaz, and we're happy to talk to them, help them through the process of choosing a clinic before ours is available. Because as Boaz said early on, there's a lot of treatment centers out there. Some are good, some are not so good. So it's really, we could help them in that process until we're up and running and ready to accept patients. And Boaz, do you have?
Yeah, we can advise them on the right procedures before they go to a clinic. We can recommend them a couple of good clinics that exist now. And we can, I have a lighting problem here. And we take their names, and because it takes a few months to, to prepare for yourself and the family and so on. And be ready when we're ready. There are a couple of clinics, the good clinics have like a 6-month waiting list sometimes,
Wow.
So we will be ready, up and running, and we can take names and help them in the process. If it's something more urgent, direct them to other places.
I think for me, I'd like to do some more research and try to meet some of the veterans who've gone through ibogaine treatment. I think it's something that more veterans would be interested in learning about if they knew about it. I certainly didn't know a lot about it. Like I said, I'm more familiar with the cannabis-based therapy. So I'd like to learn more and understand what you all's process is as you move through this pathway to adoption. And I just want to thank you all for coming on.
My pleasure, Travis. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you, Travis. I just want to say that if people want also to hear Joe Rogan experience, number 2251, it's a 2-hour discussion on ibogaine with the governor of Texas and Brian Hubbard. So thank you for your time and letting us on the air. You're doing holy work, Travis.
Well, I'll put that link in the Oscar Mike Radio show post. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. And again, I want us veterans to remember that, there are people advocating for us with new and different ways, and we should be open to what that can do for our community. So I want to say thank you, gentlemen. As we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we're mission in flight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. All the best.
The biggest fear Gold Star families have, that their child will be forgotten.
We need to never forget freedom wasn't free.
It's the fact that they give us the life we have now. We should remember them and give thanks to them.
If I can be a part of something today that's going to make the surviving family of any of these veterans, these heroes, feel better tomorrow, then it's worth it.
That one wreath symbolizes one family that was able to smile because of the generous donations.
To sponsor a wreath and honor a veteran, visit wreathsacrossamerica.org.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinister One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.